Welcome back. Let's get to work on this exercise. So we're going to start with part 1, and I have it open here on the left. I have my live server on the right, and let's just dive right in. So first up, we have an H3. We need to make it blue, which I specified as primary because there is more than one shade of blue. And let's go ahead and do that. So text primary, that makes it blue, and then display size 4. So that's display-4. There we go. Next up, we have this H6, which right now looks like this, but we're supposed to make it look like an H1, and that's really easy using the built-in H1 class from Bootstrap. All right, moving on to the buttons. So make a large red button. So for all of these, we need to say class equals btn. On its own, that doesn't do very much for us as far as making it large or red. So then we need to do btn-lg to make it large. Still, we can't really tell that it's large. And then btn-danger for red. All right, so that's the large red button. Now for regular size yellow button, it's btn and then btn-warning. Okay, and a small green button. So that's btn, btn-success, btn small, sm. And then we've got, let's see, large light blue outline button. And this is an anchor tag. Doesn't matter really, but just so I point that out, we're working on a button and an anchor tag. So this is btn, btn-outline-info for light blue, and then large, btn-lg. Cool. Next up, small green outline button. I'm just going to copy some of this over, and we'll change it to be outline success, and it's supposed to be small. Is that right? Yep. And then finally, red text. So that's text danger. Perfect. Next up, we have this small, and we're supposed to make it muted, so we don't have to touch the H1, and that's as simple as text class equals text dash muted. And then this paragraph is supposed to have a dark background, white text, and be centered aligned. So let's do bg dark. There we go. Text white. And then finally, text center. All right, and then we've got our last button, which we're supposed to make look like a link, not a button. Some of you may have had to go and look this one back up. So it's not that common that you would need to do this, but it's btn-link. And there we go. It looks like a link now. And that's it for part 1. All right, so moving on to part 2, it's a little more complicated. Let's go look at that screenshot. Or actually, I'm just going to pull up my version here. I have the solution open. So let's start with this first Jumbotron. The first thing we can tell is that it's a Jumbotron, and it's inside of a container. It's not going all the way across. It's not a fluid Jumbotron. So I'm going to come down here and do dot Jumbotron, or first I'm going to do dot container, because we're now outside of the container that I had up here. And then I'll do dot Jumbotron in here, and just save, and you can see we're getting that correct shape. If we didn't have the container, it goes all the way across, not what we're looking for. And then inside of that, I didn't specify exactly what size display that should be, so let's just say it's display 4, but it's not a huge deal. So we'll do h1.display4, and then I think I just said my website. It looks a little smaller, so let's say display of 3. Okay. That looks good. And then we've got this block quote in here. This whole thing is a quote. So that's going to be a block quote element. And I'll just go ahead and copy this so I don't have to type it up myself. So we put that in a paragraph. And then, if you missed the paragraph part, it's not a huge deal. The exact spacing of everything is not what I'm focusing here. I'm just focusing on the elements and the classes. So we give it a class of block quote also. Now let's take a look. All right, and then to give it that footer, which is the citation, we just do footer, which again, it doesn't have to be a footer element, but that makes sense for it to be. And we give it a class of block quote dash footer. This is from the typography video. So that gives us the dash already, and then I just have to say it's from satisfied customer. Looking good. All right. And then we have our info button, and that is a large button. So I'm going to do it after the block quote. So button with the class of btn dash btn large, or btn dash large, and also btn dash info. And then what did I say? Subscribe. Yes, subscribe. And there we go. So that's our first Jumbotron. The second one is a little more complicated because, first of all, it spans all the way across. So the way we do that is by doing a Jumbotron that is also a Jumbotron dash fluid. So this is straight from that video. And if I save right away, you can see it goes all the way across. But our text does not go all the way across. So we need to add our container, which we also covered in that same video on Jumbotrons. And then inside of there, we're going to add our text. Let's see, what is this? This is, I think this is display 4. And I just said, this is fog. All right, so that's what that looks like. And then we have a paragraph, and it's hard to tell, honestly. This is slightly different than this. This is a lead paragraph. You can probably tell if you just compare them. You know, this is a lighter font and a bigger, or a lighter font weight and a larger size slightly than this. If you didn't spot that, it's okay. But we just add a paragraph, and I did lorem ipsum 20, which you could just do lorem 20 and hit tab. Or because I want to make mine look exactly like this one over here, I'm just going to copy and paste just to be safe. So that looks like this, but if I give it class equals lead, it just makes it a little, I don't know. They say it makes it stand out more, whatever they say on the docs. And then we've got our success button at the bottom. And to do that, I'll do an anchor tag because often this would be a link rather than, it's not a form, you know, where it would be natural to have a button. This might just be a link. So it doesn't have an impact, you know, aesthetically or what it looks like, but it makes sense to make it an anchor tag. So btn dash success, and then btn lg. And what did I say in there? Subscribe, sign up. I can't remember. Try it today. Try it today. Okay. So we are done with the markup. Now what we have to do is change the background image. And this part's kind of annoying. First of all, this link is insanely long. I have a hard time even just copying it. All right, so I'm going to copy this link. If you just want to take a look at it, this is the image. It's from Unsplash. It's a free image we're allowed to use without getting sued. And if you recall in the Jumbotron video, the best way to do this is to just select this Jumbotron somehow. So we could just target Jumbotron Fluid as a class in general. I like to get more specific. I'm just going to do an ID, and we'll just call this, I don't know, fog header or something. Then we come down to make a style tag, or it would be better to do this as a separate CSS style sheet, but to keep this simple and centralized, I'm doing it right here. And I'm going to select that ID, fog header. And then I'm going to give it a background URL and paste in that image. And it doesn't quite, I mean, you can see it change, but it doesn't quite seem like it worked. But what's happening is that this image is so large that we're only seeing this top part, which is sort of a solid color. So what I'm going to do is then give it a background position of center so that we see the light and the dark. And this is what I mentioned briefly at the end of the intro video to the solution, or to the exercise. If you didn't get this part, it's not at all part of the course content, but background position center, and make sure I add my semicolon there, and there we go. All right, so that's the solution. If we just compare the two, you know, Jumbotrons look the same, text in this first one looks the same. Really, that was all I wanted you to do here. I apologize if the background image gave you any trouble. And we're now moving on. We have a couple tools in our arsenal, but we're going to learn a lot more in the next, actually every other section from here on out. But the next couple are really fundamental, and we'll have more exercises then. All right, see you in a bit.